I grew up in a small lake town, 1,000 people, in central Wisconsin. The town was serene, and the community was very tight-knit. There was no murder, kidnapping, shootings, robberies, etc. And the majority of crime consisted of teenagers partying on the weekend and running from the local cops. However, an encounter on a cold fall night still haunts me to this day, nearly 20 years later. Although our town was small, I lived in an even more remote area on the edge of the woods. There were neighbors about a half-mile on either side, but the woods behind my house consisted of close to 2,000 acres and ran down to the lake, which is nearly 8,000 acres and stretched parallel in both directions. Across the street, over quarter-mile lots, sat 6 to 7 more homes. Beyond that, there was nothing but more woods and farmland. There were only 2 ways out of my neighborhood: a short trip beyond the homes across the street to a state highway, or my preferred route, a back road through the woods that eventually led to town. There were lake homes on that back road, although you could not see them, as they all had very long, narrow driveways, slicing through thick trees all the way down to the lake. The other side of the road was nothing but woods. There were no streetlights or sidewalks, and usually you would travel this road without seeing anyone other than the occasional walker. When I was in 7th grade, a good friend of mine had moved across the street. There wasn't much to do in our area, so we frequently rode our bikes along the lake and into town to burn time, about a 5-mile ride, usually stopping by our sole gas station for soda and snacks. On one Saturday afternoon, in September 2006, we did our typical ride. While riding home on the stretch of back roads surrounded by forest, around 2 p.m., important later, an old beat-up Ford truck pulled alongside us. It was a 2-door cab with a bench seat. A man was driving and a woman was seated in the passenger seat. The man appeared to be in his 30s and had a rough, dirty look. The woman, who appeared to be the same age, did not look right. I don't know how to explain it, other than she looked evil. Her hair was a mess, her face dirty, and she just sat there staring straight ahead, emotionless. We had never seen them before. They were strangers. The man rolled down his window and in a monotone voice asked, "Is it okay if we park here?" By here, he meant the side of the road, where any shoulder was essentially non-existent. Me and my friend looked at each other slightly confused, looked back at the man, shrugged, and perplexingly said yes. It was incredibly odd, especially considering the surrounding area. The lake homes are multi-million-dollar homes, and these 2 stuck out like a sore thumb. Moreover, in the 20 years I lived there, I can't ever recall a car just parked on that stretch of road. It is all private land, and there would be no reason to stop. After we responded, he just rolled up his window and slowed his truck. I don't recall seeing them actually park, and we kept riding toward home before arriving minutes later. My parents were out of town that weekend, so a few more friends came over later that afternoon to spend the night. As middle schoolers will do, we thought it would be fun to TP a few homes later that night. We had an acquaintance whose mother was a bit of a basket case, and we thought it would be fun to target his house. The home was about a 20 minutes walk down the back road in a wealthy lake neighborhood, with another quick 5 minutes walk through a stretch of woods. We left my house that night around 11:30 p.m. with our backpacks full of toilet paper, dressed in dark clothing, and using only the moonlight rather than any flashlights. The walk begins with a 1/2-mile stretch in a wide open area with several homes scattered, before taking a hard right as you run into a cornfield. The road then slopes down quite a bit and curves left as you begin the walk through the forested road. 5 of us, walking shoulder to shoulder, were all laughing and joking around as we made our way down the long stretch of dark road. Although the moon was bright, much of the light was swallowed by the canopy of trees. Just as the moon began to disappear above the trees, a set of headlights, about 50 yards ahead, switched on and lit up the entire road. We immediately bailed from the road, ran through the ditch and woods to the left, and ducked down in a large cornfield. We could hear the man walking along the gravel shoulder, yelling, "We have you now. You can't hide from us," followed by a sinister chuckle. He began to poke through the woods separating the woods and cornfield, taunting us, saying over and over, "I'm going to find you." The inflection in his voice appeared demonic. After sitting completely silent for about a minute, my friend's phone began to ring. It was tucked into a side pocket of his backpack, and he couldn't dig it out to shut it off. I grabbed his backpack and slammed it on the ground, silencing the phone. Seconds later, we could hear the man rushing through the brush toward our direction. We turned and ran as fast as we possibly could, cutting through the cornfield and thick woods back toward my house. We never looked back and didn't stop until we made it home. A couple of minutes after getting home, my 3 other friends arrived, 2 together and 1 alone. Luckily, we were all incredibly familiar with the area and could navigate through dense forest with little light. My friend who arrived alone got slightly lost and hid in the woods as the man returned to his vehicle and drove slowly down the road, his window down, playing what we later learned to be ghost riders in the sky. He told us he saw an old beat-up Ford truck with a person seated next to the man. The same exact truck we saw nearly 10 hours earlier. We were kids, so we didn't think too much of it. We were out to TP homes, and it was natural to get caught and to run and hide. But as the years have gone by, I cannot make sense of the situation. There was a truck with total strangers parked on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere for 10 hours. Neither the man nor woman lived in that area, as we knew almost everyone in town, and certainly knew everyone who lived in the vicinity of my home. You would also never find anyone walking that road in the middle of the night, ever. It just doesn't happen. I still sit and wonder what would have happened had one of us been caught. It completely rattles me whenever I place myself back in that cornfield. The Strangers was released 2 years later, and the ending of that movie had nearly an identical experience. Same type of truck, same type of creepy, emotionless vibes, same appearance of evil. I cannot help but think that we narrowly escaped a terrible, painful ending.